Adams. He was the second president of the United States, serving as a delegate from Massachusetts to the Continental Congress between 1774 and 1777, as a diplomat in Europe from 1778 to 1788, and as a vice president during the Washington administration. Now, despite this experience with other politicians, Adams opposed slavery both morally and politically. George Washington and the Virginians that followed Adams in office, however, owned slaves that they brought into the president's house and forced to labor without pay. Adams did not hire enslaved people. Instead, he hired white and free African American workers to provide these services. Good on him. John Adams initially preferred a federal government that kept his credit high and his taxes low by taking a frugal approach to running this country. Now, spoiler alert, this whole taxes low thing becomes totally ironic as he reaches the end of his presidency, but we'll talk about that later. As John Adams worked as a diplomat for over 10 years, his expertise was in foreign affairs and less domestic. However, John Adams did make some internal changes, a big one being what we know as the White House today. On June 11, 1800, John Adams moved the capital of the United States to the new city of Washington, D.C., from the previous capital of Philadelphia. He also created an act called the Sedition Act, one that will surely get a few angry Instagram reposts if implemented today. This Sedition Act literally made it illegal to make fun of the government. This was created to control the influence of Democratic Republicans, which didn't have as much legitimacy with the Federalist-controlled government at the time. With the Sedition Act, Adams also brought in three other acts: the Naturalization Act, the Alien Act, and the Alien Enemies Act. The Naturalization Act increased the required time of residence in the U.S. from 5 years, something I wish was still true today, to 14. The Alien Act allowed the president to deport whoever he deemed dangerous to the security of the United States, and the Alien Enemies Act allowed the president to deport aliens of an enemy country or restrict their freedoms in times of war. A lot of the accomplishments John Adams had achieved is sort of overshadowed by his big foreign affair though, also known as the XYZ affair. In 1796, France broke diplomatic ties with the US, to which Adams responded by sending a peace delegation to negotiate with the French government. However, the French government refused to speak to this peace delegation, asking for a bribe to speak to the French foreign minister. They then threatened war with the United States if this bribe was not paid. The US, with its huge ego of course, decided to not pay this bribe, instead opting for the enlistment of 10,000 men to serve for this country in this pseudo-undeclared, I guess kind of a low-key war. This obviously cost a lot of money, probably more than the bribe honestly, and to make up for that, the Direct Tax Act of 1798 was enacted, increasing property tax on all people who own land, dwellings, or slaves. This brought additional instability with rebellions from farmers who were against this tax. Known as the Fries Rebellion, aptly named after John Fries of course, several hundred farmers from the German farmers of Bucks, Northampton, and Montgomery counties in Pennsylvania forced, by intimidation rather than actual violence, the release of a group of tax resistors who had been imprisoned under the custody of the federal marshal. In response, President Adams called out a force of federal troops and militia who marched into the rebellious counties and began arresting just about everyone involved in this peaceful protest. Really reminds me of something there. John Fries was captured and subsequently tried twice, convicted of treason on each occasion, and sentenced to hang but pardoned later. With some big changes during his presidency, like the relocation of the capital, the Direct Tax Act, and the Alien and Sedition Acts, John Adams made a big impact on how the United States is today. However, he did not end up getting re-elected, instead conceding the seat to Thomas Jefferson, something I also wish was still true today.